Today in this video we are going to explain determinants of demand. We know the determinants of demand are those factors which influence the demand for a commodity. The determinants we categorize into two groups: determinants of individual demand and determinants of market demand. Determinants of individual demand. The first determinant, individual demand determinant, is price of its own price. Being other things remaining constant, the price of its own and the quantity demanded inversely related. That is, when the price of a commodity increases, the quantity demanded for the commodity decreases. And when price decreases, quantity demanded increases. This inverse relationship between the price and the quantity demanded for a commodity is known as law of demand. Now see the table, the demand schedule. Suppose this price is given and this quantity is given. At 2 rupees per unit, the quantity demanded 2 units. Now if the price decreased from 2 to rupee 1, the quantity demanded increases from 2 to 3 units. Further, if the price rises from rupees 2 to rupees 3 per unit, then the quantity demanded decreases from 2 units to 1 unit. So this clearly shows that the price and quantity demanded inversely related. If we plot all these points in the graph paper, we'll get a downward sloping demand curve. This downward sloping demand curve represents price and quantity demanded inversely related. When price decreases, suppose this is the original price, decreases, when price decreases here, the quantity demanded increases and the curve moves downward. This is called downward movement along a demand curve or contraction in extension in demand. And when the price increases, there is decrease in quantity demanded or contraction in demand. This is called upward movement along a demand curve. Next is change in price of related goods. The related goods are of two types: substitute goods and complementary goods. Substitute goods are those goods which are demanded in place of one another. For example, tea and coffee. In case of substitute good, if a fall or rise in the price of one commodity causes a decrease or increase in the quantity demanded for another commodity, they are said to be substitute. So when we get the substitute good, they are positively related. The price of one good and the demand for other good positively related. That is, if the price of substitute good rises, quantity demanded for the other good will also rise, and if the price decreases, quantity demanded of the other good will decrease. When the price of one commodity rises, the consumers buy less of it and more of the commodity which is its substitute. For example, the demand for tea will increase with the rise in the price of coffee, and with the fall in the price of coffee, the demand for tea will decrease. In this case, the demand curve will shift towards right when the price of substitute good rises. The DD demand curve will shift towards right when the price of substitute good rises, and DD demand curve shifts towards left to D0 when price of substitute good falls. It is clear from this table. See, this is the price of the given commodity, this is the price of substitute good, and this is the demand for the given commodity. Suppose the original price of the given good is 2 and the substitute good 2 and the quantity demanded for the other good is 3. Now at the given price, if the price of substitute good rises from 2 to 3, then the demand for other good will also increase from 3 units to 4 units. Further, if the price of substitute good falls from rupees 2 to rupee 1 per unit, then the demand for the commodity, the other commodity, will decrease from 3 to 2 units. So this clearly shows that when the with the price of substitute good and demand for other good directly related. Now what is the effect on the demand? At the given price of a commodity, say X, that is 2. If the price of its substitute good rises from 2 to 3, then the demand for given good, that is X good, rises from 3 units to 4 units. And the demand curve, that is 3 units to 4 units, and the demand curve will shift towards right. Why? Due to increase in price of substitute good. And when the price of substitute good falls, then the demand for other good will decrease and the demand curve will shift towards left, showing decrease in demand. This is decrease in demand. So in case of increase or decrease in demand, the demand curve will shift, increase rightward shift and decrease leftward shift. But in case of increase in quantity demanded, the demand curve will move downward. And in case of increase in price of its own, the demand curve will move along the same demand curve towards left, upward movement. So there is a difference between movement and the shift. The shift because due to change in other determinants other than price, and movement due to change in its own price when other determinants remain constant. Next is complementary good. Complementary goods are those goods which are demanded jointly, means together. For example, car and petrol, tea and sugar. How are they related? The complementary goods are indirectly related. That means when the price of complementary good rises, the demand for other good decreases. And when the price of complementary good rises, at the given price of the other good, the demand for other good increases. So they have inverse relationship. What is the effect on demand? At the given price of a commodity, say X, if the price of its complementary good, say Y, rises, then the demand for given good, that is X good, will fall and the demand curve will shift towards left. This is. And when the price of complementary good rises, decreases, then the demand for other good will shift towards right. For example, we have taken the X is the petrol 75 per liter and PY is the price of car in lakh, 1 lakh, 2 lakh, 3 lakh, and DX is the liters petrol. So petrol price is constant. Now the price of complementary goods is, say, the car, that is the original. Now if the car price decrease from 2 to 1, the people will consume more car, they will use more car. Obviously the demand for petrol will increase. And when the price of car will increase, the people will demand less car, and that will result in decrease in demand for petrol. So I have seen that in case of complementary goods, increase in price of complementary good results in decrease in demand and demand curve shifts towards right. And decrease in price of complementary good results in increase in demand and the demand curve shifts towards right. Income of consumer. The effect of change in income of consumer will be different for different types of goods. The goods are normally 3 types: normal goods, inferior goods, and basic goods. In case of normal good, what are the normal goods? The normal goods are those goods which have positive income effect. That means at a given price, if the income of the consumer rises, the demand for normal good also rises. And if income decreases, the demand for normal good will decrease. That means all those goods will be called normal goods for which we have positive income effect. Now this table, if you see, the price is given X. Suppose X is a normal good, and this is the consumer's income 20 rupees, 30 rupees, 40 rupees. That is the given income 30 rupees. At 30 rupees, when the price of the commodity 2, then the consumer demands 15 units. Now if the income decreases from 30 to 20 at a given price, that is 2, the consumer demand less, because it is directly related. So as income decreases, demand also decreases, and when income increases from 30 to 40, the demand for the normal good also increases from 15 to 20. So this increase in demand result in rightward shift of demand curve, and decrease in demand result in leftward shift of the demand curve. And this relationship, when you represent income in y-axis and demand for the normal good in x-axis, then we get the upward sloping curve representing the income of consumer and the demand for normal good directly related. This is the relationship curve, and this is the effect on demand. So what we come to know, that in case of normal good, increase in income, demand increases, demand curve shifts towards right. And with the decrease in income, demand decreases and demand curve shifts towards left. Now inferior goods. Inferior goods are those goods which have negative income. That means at a given price of the commodity, when with the increase in income, the demand for these goods decrease, and with the decrease in income, the demand for this commodity increase. That shows inverse relationship. These are generally low price product. As income rises, demand for inferior good decreases, and as income decreases, demand for inferior good rises. Let us see, this is the inferior goods price given. Now this is the original one. At the 2 rupees, when the consumer has income of rupees 30, he demands 6 units of inferior goods. Now if the income decreases for any reason, if the income decreases at a given price of the inferior good, the demand for the commodity will increase. And if the income rises, then at a given price, the demand for inferior good will decrease. Why this happens? Because the consumer move their demand from inferior good to superior good, and that is why the demand decreases when income rises. So if we represent this relationship, income and inferior goods, demand for inferior goods, then we'll have downward sloping demand curve representing income and demand for inferior good inversely related. Now what is the effect on demand? At the given price of inferior good, when the income of consumer rises, the demand for the commodity decreases and the demand curve shifts towards left, showing decrease in demand from OQ to OQ0. Why? The reason is given when Y rises. Similarly, when Y falls, this is the original demand curve, the demand curve shifts towards right to D1, D1, showing increase in demand from OQ to OQ1. So you have got that in case of inferior good, with the increase in income, the demand for inferior good decreases, and with the fall in income, the demand for inferior good rises. The third type of good is basic good or necessary or necessities. In case of basic good, there is no effect with the change in income of the consumer. Taste and preference. At a given price of a good, favorable change will lead to increase in demand for the good, and demand curve shifts towards right. And unfavorable change will lead to decrease in demand and demand curve will shift towards left. Let us see. Suppose this is the given one, original one. Price is 2 and at a normal preference the consumer demands 10 units. Now this product becomes favorable to the consumer. As a result, at the same price, the demand for the commodity increases from 10 to 15 units. When the suppose the product become unfavorable, then at the same price the demand for the commodity decreases from 10 units to 5 units. So we find the favorable test and preference lead to increase in demand and rightward shift of the demand curve, and unfavorable test and preference lead to decrease in demand, that is leftward shift of demand curve. Expectation in further change in price. If there is an expectation of further rise in prices, the demand also increases and the demand curve shifts to the right. On the other hand, if the expectation is of further fall in prices, the demand decreases and the demand curve shifts towards left. Now let us understand from this demand schedule. Px is the price of the good, EPX is the expected change in price, and dx is the quantity demanded for good X. Now suppose this is the normal situation, that is the given situation, rupees 2 the given price, expected price are 2, and at that price the quantity demanded is 3 units. Now if the consumer expect that tomorrow or in future, near future, the price will increase from 2 to 3, then at rupees 2 today the consumer will try to buy more, because if he waits for tomorrow the price will increase, so there will be loss in satisfaction. In that case the consumer will try to buy more, results in increasing demand. Similarly, if the consumer expects that there will be fall in price in near future from 2 to 1, then consumer will wait for tomorrow. So today he will buy less, he will buy 2 units. So when the future expectation regarding change in price is positive, that is increase, then the demand for the commodity will increase and demand curve will shift towards right, showing increase in demand from OQ to OQ1 at a given price. OP means 2. And if the consumer expects that the price will fall in future, then at a given price, the consumer will demand less, means demand decrease, and the demand curve, DD demand curve, will shift towards left to D0, D0. So what we get in case of further expectation in change in price, we get when there is increase in price in future, that is the consumer expected, in that case the consumer will demand more, means increase in demand, and demand curve will shift towards right. And if the consumer expects there will be fall in price, then consumer will demand less and the demand curve will shift towards left. Now determinants of market demand. All the factors that affect individual households' demands also affect the market demand. Apart from these are determinants of market demand. So previous all the determinants what we have explained, these are also come under the market determinant, but these are the special category of the market determinants of demand. Population and number of households. Changes in population or number of households in the market also affect the market demand for goods. For example, with the increase in population or number of households, demand for good also increases. Moreover, if with the increase in population, the ratio of children in the total population increase, then the demand for goods used by the children, such as milk, toys, etc., will also increase. And if there is decrease in the population, then the demand for the commodity will decrease. And when demand decreases, demand curve will shifts leftward. And when population increases, demand curve will shifts towards rightward. So at a given price, if the population increases, the demand curve will shifts towards right, showing increase in demand. And if the population decreases, demand curve will shift leftward, showing decrease in demand. Change in climate and season. The certain goods are specifically useful only in a particular season and climate. So, during the season, at a given price, their demand will increase and the demand curve will shift towards right. And during the off season, the demand for the commodity will decrease and demand curve will shift towards left even at the given price. Distribution of income and wealth. If there is unequal distribution, those goods which are demanded by the rich people are in a greater demand, means demand will increase at a given price. And if there is equal distribution, then the goods which are demanded by the rich people will result in lower demand. Government policy. Favorable government policy, that is decreasing tax rate or granting subsidies, will lead to increase in demand at a given price and vice versa. If the government policy is unfavorable, then the demand for the commodity will decrease at the given price and the demand curve will shift towards left. So we come to know the different causes of increase in demand and decrease in demand. So let us summarize. The demand increase means rightward shift when, if we recall from the beginning, the demand increases first, increase in the price of substitute good, and demand decreases, decrease in the price of substitute good. Next, if the price of complementary goods decreases, demand will increase, and if the price of complementary good increase, then the demand will decrease. Third, if the income of consumer increases in case of normal good, the demand for the commodity will increase, and if the income of the consumer decreases in case of normal good, the demand for the commodity will decrease. Next, inferior goods. When the income of the consumer decreases in case of inferior good, the demand will increase, and if the income of consumer increases, then the demand for inferior goods will decrease. And in case of basic good, there is no effect on demand due to change in income of consumer. Then we have, if the favorable taste and preference will result in increase in demand, and unfavorable taste and preference will result in decrease in demand. In case of further change in price, if expectation in further change in price is to rise, then the demand for the commodity will increase and demand curve will shift towards right. And if the expectation in further change in price is to decrease, then the demand for the commodity will decrease and demand curve will shift towards right. Then come to the population. If the population increases, demand will increase. If the population decreases, demand will decrease. During the season, the demand for the commodity will increase, and during the off season, the demand for the commodity seasonal good will decrease. Distribution of income and wealth. If there is unequal distribution, then the demand for the commodity which are demanded by the rich people will increase. And if the government policy is favorable, demand will increase and demand curve will shift towards right. And if it is unfavorable government policy, result will decrease in demand and demand curve will shift towards left. So from there we come to know what is the shift, what are the cases in which the demand curve shifts towards right or left, that is increase or decrease. Thank you. That's all.